welcome to Seep Films. In this video, we will dive into the series House of the Dragon Season 3. We will discuss movie storylines and its ending. We will also talk about movie cast and characters. Moreover, we will discuss movie review and its box office. So here we go. House of the Dragon Season 3 Masterpiece episode is everything. Game of Thrones ending should have been I review. There are a lot of things to hate about the way Game of Thrones ended, but none are more apparent than the flagrant character, the associations of the Daenerys, the Targaryens, and the clerks. Even 7 years later, it is truly the baffling that the teams behind of the biggest the fancy shower ever made, though it would be a good idea for a Bannerverse roller to become a Xenocidal's manic with the zero development to back up such a change. It's a consolation that's so bad. It's the really should have the kill the interior franchise for good, but then along come House of the Dragon. While reaction to season 2 of the Game of Thrones, the prequels may have been more mixed. Season 1 the brought franchise back to the series bar of the political, the intricate and well-written characters. One of those characters and the arguables, the protagonists of the interior series is the Rhaenyra the Dragons, played by the Supergirl war the still Melly Alok in the future queen, younger years before the passing the trust to truth. Sketchers alum Amy D. Arab. D. Arab brought down the house in season 3, the previous episode, as a mother in the throe of the grief. But the focus on their character is the show noise. Chapter bring forth one of the biggest episode in the intrigue Game of the Thrones the universe. House of the Dragon Season 3 third episode puts the spotlight on a Rhaenyra. This week's House of the Dragon appeared to the explanator episode that the creator, the Ryan Condals, was the referring to ahead of the session release, but it's the start as any other typical episode where Damon triggers the flag by the Olfi and the huge goes to the comfort lord the augment the hunters and his the army to the inform them that the war between the blacks and the green is the over and that the Rhaenyra has taken control as the rightful queen of the western the augment very reflectors army to inform that the war between the blacks and the green is the over and that the Rhaenyra has taken control as the rightful queen of the westerns. Ormond Valley the relatives bent the knee, even handing over the queen the downers aliens. Olvi Cock, the youngest son dragon, as a gister of the god well. After that thought the perspective switches to the Rhaenyra and the style with her for the interior of the episode, making for a singular character the motivated hour that has not been seen since Jon now. In the flagship series, it's effectively a show causes of the Rhaenyra first episode proper a western queen, where she that inherits all sort of the issues. All of this the Oscar Wilde Diamonds score really gets to shine with the state heavy the orchestra coming to the terrifying surge every time the Rhaenyra's resolve is the shakens, even though she has due to be a peaceful roller like a father the wizards. Last week's episode ended on a seemingly the trumpet note, with the Rhaenyra taking control of the King Landing, but this week's our really honors is one of the trample that they follow. First of the many problem in the realm, the royal the treasure has been the drain of its the funds, and not even the imprisoned aliens or the Helen know what become of it. Secondly, the remains of the trick now the scattered after the death of the Admiral Lords. Following the Battle of the Glade are the near-raking villages across the kingdoms. Last but certainly not least but the Aemon and the Aegons, now where to be the found deposit being the two largest theatre to the Rhaenyra's region, with the agents were about the specifically. Unknown the Rhaenyra's order that the unsurprised be declared dead. Rhaenyra's descent officially begins in the House of the Dragon's new episode. A development that treasures the brightness, the terrorizing the realm, and to the vengeful the opponents. To those, the missing in the action are more than enough to drive anyone mad, but the Rihanna's the problem are only just the begin. Shortly after the ordering that her throne son Joffrey he brought back to things landing so that he can bring the prescriptions to become here. Rihanna brings the having visions of the exactly decide Jericia. Later she the attempts to speak with the highlight the Stephen of the King's Landing about the officially the unknowing her as Queen deposit before a formula corrections, but this the lead to a surprisingly tense conversation while the sequence leader of the faith of the seven practicals calls Rihanna a liar. Rhaenyra's earlier to her face questioning her false narrative of the agent's death. Another, the potential bigger problem arises who the Kralls tells the Rhaenyra that he would like this the bestest son, Elian and the Adam of the Hull, officially the acknowledged as the Valerons by the crown, while the Rhaenyra does the eventually knights Adam along with his the fellow the Dragon's. She refused to give him the Valkyriensis title, cattling the rumors her own the children faced many years ago. Corona is not the pleased, later confirming Rihanna and even the referring to her three elder sons as the best guard in front of the serval. In front of the serval, the bystanders. One place where the Rihanna does a lot to make some the progress though is with the people while the hearing the timestamp from her the subjective. It's become the apparent that the king's the landing lead the fortress are the striving, both from the Rihanna's block during the war and from the rich and powerful of the city holding fort. The queen the confirms this head on by the luring with the people while hearing the time strains from her the subject, it's become the apparent that the king's landing less fortunate are the staving, both from the Rihanna blockades during the war and from the rich and powerful of the city holding fort. The queen the comforts this head on by the luring the cities well haste the families to the cattle while the plot coexcises control of their reserves. Deposit a tasty exchange with the one the Thorin Matry play by the Fantastic Beasts trilogy star the Dan Froggers, the movie pays off. House of the Dragon, the creatures, the conflict is not over after episode 3. The small victory is hand. Rihanna tries to make some sort of the amends with the Alicent in the aftermath of the Otto Hearts Tower extraction. As a gesture of the goodwill, Rihanna brings the alien to see a decor bed. This small victory in hand, the Rihanna tries to make some sort of the amends, while the artist is the aftermath of the oaths execution as a gesture of the goodwill. Rihanna brings the Alicent to see a dragon, but there's just one problem. The boy the armored gave the diamond is not the dragon but the low brown the impostor, handed ever as a rosers. Rihanna over that this is the transgression will not go the unpunished, as she the order the green trapeze that they formally decode that the hails of the red keep to be the burned. The reason why the trainers turned to the dark side did not work in Game of Thrones is that it was a huge swings with a little development in just a single episode, let alone her the brilliant sense with the additions Rihanna is the already for. The reason why the Rhaenyra turns to the dark side did not work in Game of the Throne is that it was a huge swings with a little development in just a single episode, let alone her the brilliant scenes with the alien. Rhaenyra is already for the more dynamic, more the understandable and more the earlier terrifying as she being to develop after becoming Queen of Realms. It's a masterful character study that definitely cements Emma Era as one of the French's best performance and the Rhaenyra Dragons as one of the French's best characters. House of the Dragon Season 3 is a streaming now, HBO Max. House of the Dragon crank up action in a lazy sleepy Season 3 TV review. If this the victory, a character on the House of the Dragon reflect while the gazing out at a crops Steven the butterfly, I hope I never see another. That line is the essentially the statement of the Game of Thrones prequel series, which the return on the 21 June after and now the costume 2 years absence Frenchie's fan could get there the freaks in the meaning while the lovely Mash Lover K, a K knife the Seven Kingdom, which arrived on the HBO earlier this year. The drama follows a massive civil war that pits the royal family of the Western against itself to the benefit of the absolutely no one season 3. However, faced some the criticism for its the lack of the cinematic set piece, potential due to an episode order that stands from 10 to the hour. While the spinning like and the overlens one dream sequence. Not only did I find the conversation we did see, like the death of the Princess Rhaenyra Dragon's Abbey Best and the minimum of the Iron Throne the Salamitis Aegon's Tom Kilena in the show first proper instance of the dragon on the dragon combat plenty awesome, as in literally you aspiring if themselves I did ill installations that show the previous well established sentence toward armed conflict. The quiet that the opens this review is the simply one of the more explained statement of what any casual house of the dragon viewer already know. War is hell. And there no war more the hallucinations that the one with the fire breathing the questionable. Controllable weapons of the mass that distractions is not just something to look forward to or realize when it arrives. As is typical for a show of this the scale, the 4 episode of season 3 providing to the criticized camp with a laundry list of the spoiler longer than the some wedding trousers. But one plot point I can the devils, in fact one I bet HBO would very much like me to, is that there a major the showdown in the very first episode, the infamous battle of the Glad Pites, naval forces loyal to the Rhaenyra Dragons, Emma DRC and led by the Decrot commanders Crossel C. the Snake, Velora Stephens the Tristans, against a fleet from a treaty of the allied city-state who have agreed to help break the Rhaenyra blocks on the Westeros capital of the King Landing. It's also one of the survival plot the conversation that will likely allay the concerned about. Rhaenyra blockade on the Westeros capital of the King the Landing. It's also one of the survival potential conversation that will likely allay the concern about the continued trading of the water, narrow sea or the otherwise, as the steward by the showrunner Rhaenyra Candles and the directed by the Loni the Priest that the Battle of the Glist is the instead spectacular yet the entry point of the House of the Dragon has been so well made that their little satisfaction to be the gained by the frenetic victories achieved within its the scope. There's the no moments. There are no moments that comparable to the Triana Lizis rising the chant across the bay in the Battle of the Blackwater, an early highlight in the Game of Thrones that the delivered a dozen of the first pumping drums when the dragons arrive at the glade. Any relief felt by the Rhaenyra troop is the fleeting at best, especially when not all of them obey the riders' wishes, which is the how whole mess begin in the first place, though the neither history nor the. When not all of them the obey the rider wishes, which is how this the whole mess begin in the first place, neither the history or nor the patriarchs affected care, and the princess the amant did not mean for his the surprising pat to the verified this the own nephew, which is another house of the dragon them, that the individual the intentions are so much for the larger force, be the historical or the animal. That's why to my mind the more exciting development in season 3 is much more the intimate scope than horde of the tropes that descend into the chaos. The final episode of season 2 saw along the daylight phase of between Rhaenyra and her the standard. That's why to my mind the more exciting development in season 3 is much more intimate scope than hordes of the tropes declining into thoughts. The final episode of season 3 to a long developed phase of between Rhaenyra and her the strained childhood friends. Trent the stepmother, the Triana, everybody, aliens, high tower, two women now the standard on the opposite side of the yemming camps that started as a crack in their one strong beyond. The scene was a reminder of the rewinding layers in the relationship as acted by two of the more skilled actors in a deep the benches the ensemble. So skill is like that we barely blink when the reminds the 32 years old the cook is meant to be the mother of. Crack in there the one strong bond The sense was a reminder of the rewatching layers in the relationship as acted by a two of the more skilled actor in a deep, dense thin Samuel so skilled, in fact that we barely blink when the reminds the 32 years old cooking is the man to be the another mother of the 29 years old the Magdals. I am the forbiddance. From the disclosing there the exist circumstance but the season 3 features many more the sense between these the central pair are rewinding return by House of the Dragon to its the roots the D sides have the past within the series. Time frame not to the mention for years of the real time, it's often the defer to the recall the complex web of the aliens betrayals and family ties that brought these characters to touch other the thoughts. A conversation that is sometimes the proposals and something the frustrating. It's look me the survival means of when the supposedly emotional and the mid-season scene reminder I was watching a present speak to their the own childs. In there the alternative waves of the resents and the understanding angers and the sorrow. Remember, I was watching a present speak to their own child in the alternative waves of the resisting and the understanding agents and the sparrow, DRC and Cook imbue, Rihanna and the Alisa dynamic with all the weight of this the history and knows of this the consolation. Not all of the show the connection are so well realized, even the foundations ones that the drive west ways of the story. 2 seasons later, for example, House of the Dragon is still the paying the piece for the heartbreaking such development as the Rihanna Long Trump affair with the Heaven Strong Rihanna Core, which the produced two children was the widely the disputed the Lexis. Not all of the show the connections are so well the realized. Even the foundations one that drive west the switch of the story. The season later, for example, House of the Dragon is still the paying the price of the hand bringing such a development as the Rian Long's Trump affair with the Heaven Strong Rihanna Core, which the produced two children was the widely disputed. Legacies play a major role in the state. The war seeds planted in season 1 are supposed to be the bring fruity by now, but the Rihanna continued Dinals and the her Hazel sketch belief of a massively the conclusions remains make the payoff than the that Rhaenyra and the alias the multifaceted reported is. Seeds the planted in the season 1 are supposed to be the being fruity by now, but the Rhianners continue. Dinal and her Hazel sketch belief of a massively the conclusions rumors make the pay off less than the critics its good things. Than that the Rhianners and the Elysians multifaceted reporter is a check the show is more than able to the cash. House of the Dragon is the adapted from the Another the Grow R.R. Martin the Fire and Blood, a text that's more and the alternative history the inclusive that the literary narrative at times the candle and his the collaborates work to shade it's the unsense and the humanity that's the gets erased in the academic amounts at the other day the accurately channel feeling of the stumbling on a fortnights that they continue and enter the idealized life the story. So it was with the Alicians, the cousins, or met the high waiters. A season 3, the newcomer who quickly earned his the place in a crowded field of the combat, deposit the crisis, fussy and the end down with the queries like a sensitive to sentence or might enter the fray as a Chow's agents the nominally allied with the so-called the Green. Earn his the place in a crowded field of the combat deposit the Christy Fusey and the Antwerp with the queries like a sensitive to the scripts, or might enters the fray as a Chow's agents, nominally aliens with the so-called the green. Aliens armament a gone side, bedweed and the ended and the statity of his the own. He's the kind of the character who laps of the page in the Martin writing, are filling the condals and the other possessive in the adaptation deposit Martin, publicity state issue with the sum of their the chows. Condell has said that the House of the Dragon will end with the season 4 and it's not quite a circumstance to say that the first half of season 3 left me ready for that the conclusions I don't need to know the particles of the how conflict resolved to know it will leave no one truly happy and everyone worse off. Previously, because House of the Dragons forests that the so clearly in each character the tribal a collector's decision that the would make both marginal figures like the ornaments and the fundamental ones like the two entries so important whether they provide the surprise and direction or the enduring blast. It's the people who make House of the Dragon worthy enduring the preventing distributions. The people who make House of the Dragon were the enduring the demanding divesting the dragon are just CGI flying the lizard on top. Season 3 of House of the Dragon will the premiere on the HBO and HBO Max on the 21 and 9 p.m. ET. House of the Dragon review the agency trends should always have been. Yes, House of the Dragon, unlike as it that the main able Game of the Throne prequel with a blue chip cast could be the forgettable in the first two seasons, HOTB did not help itself with the first either killing of its the best characters too soon or the recasting them to the accumbent bewildering time jumps and the second building and the building to the nothing. It returned for a third run without the marsh winds. It is the dragon wings breathe a fairy signs of the relief then at the news that he's the show as a found it's the focus the start of the season therein a fine epic balancing bit battle with the sharp to handle scenes where the dominance shift and the fatal the presently flow are the focus out at the odd new feast and a blast of the comic relief here and there and you have proper the thrones. Summarizing House of the Dragon especially as one of its the weaknesses is or was the over complexity is the impossible but the surface is to say okay that the power a victim has the embraced in the overalls creature are armored in fancy realm western into which the various rollers and the military the commander seeks to step. Almost all of them are making a lethal mistake with the first the recocking beaker, the Battle of the Glut, a naval the skate down that the Raleigh should have been the season to the final April. An orgy of the CGI cringe. The sea battle is the impassive on that the front, but that similar stories within to give the spectral strong bonds. Will the sea snag Claude Valeria, a leader who the thinking before he act and is the directed by the pretensional guild, be the overwhelmed by the rickles, dishing the Shakro lords, who not to fear our dragons after a Chris Thunder of the Arrow, Fear Decks, Sword Fights, Underwater Punch, Uns and the Dragon's Intuition we have and the answer. In accidentally the just is the still out on the whatever dragon make the house of the dragon better or the worse. You can read them as a metaphor for the weapons of the mass the distractions, while the precisely by the leads who can the barely control them anyway, but it can be the hard to the reconcile their the awesomes with the humans effectively chopping and the hacking each other. Anyway, Thorne's the wonderfully brash performance being as one of the Preventals woman was the refuse to had advice will be there the making or there the downfall. Also gambling on the sea battle, allied from the after is the third queen, Rhaenyra Throne Amy DRC, while the Rhaenyra friend few the stepmother Eliana height waiter the Olvi cook has to the shame to the survives. Her added the complications being that she is mother of the Aemond the dragons he of the one-eye peach, the jawline like Abel, and the interior the Wongfuls of the Bill little brother. DRC and the cook look ready to take over the show, with the DRC bringing the verdant the ferocity of the forever overlook and the cook the artfully unreasonable the aftermath of the opening to the episode. Bloodshed is a rewindingly the texture game, more the scotches as a drama than the show has been before with the some characters the craving power and other the limiting that they were not more carefully what they the wishings for. Cutting the impassively through the middle is the math mish, devoting that the role of the unstoppable warrior and the Rihanna uncle has been damaged the trainer at last. 100 character fair to learn the reasons that the running at the demon with a sword ends with him the launching you through the Adam's appeal, but this match is more than passive when the sword are the shitted compound as the demons with the sharp word is the foolish too. The smirk flicking around the ends of the march tell us to relax and they enjoy the crimson's chows. House of the Dragon is a less the flamboyant show that Game of the Thrones and less the reliant on the sex and the nudity to keep our the attention. There is not that the much D in the HDOD. Instead, it has the moments of the offbeat, the cuteness, like a dragon, the apparently abandoning it's the rider on a moment stop only to the repair means later with the two sheep, one of which is the helpfully flame grill or the all about commodity to the benefits one of the phone shop as the endless unlucky dragon ride elf season there has one more weapons in the reverse James Northern has an early scenes a new man player Lord the Ormonds however he is a joke where the snotty noble receive a letter from a messenger worried of a faces a new one. Nor does the Norton make it the funny, yes, but then he vanish again, kept in the reverse by a show that has the confidence of the knowing that its the edge was never sharper. House of the Dragon, a ride on the score, Allen and is the own now and the HBO Max and the incredible self-owned. In 1936, the John Scott, son of the latter the Guardian's owner and the legendary editor C.B. Scott, did the something the unheard for the a middle here. He gave up his stake for the greater God. After the inheriting the newspaper, Scott the rounds all the financial benefit. Boy, he's the salary in the Guardians were the first at the time and the around 62 m today, and the past ownership over to the newly formed Scott Trust. The trust would the evolve to the have one key mission to screw the financial and the additional independence of the Guardians in the practice. That means the guardians can't be the brought, not by the private equals, nor by the closemate, and the definitely not by a billionaires looking for a professional the mouthpiece. So here are their good reasons to make the choice to support us today. One quite the investigated the journalism is a circumstance force at the time when the rich and powerful are getting away with the more and more. We are independent and have no the billionaire owners the controlling what we do, so you are money directly powers and the reporting. It does not the cost much and the less time and it's took to the read this message, but this the unique model also means we depend on the readers like you from the Pakistan to help the found our work. If you the would rather than the news you read was the result of the decisions made by the journalists and the editors, not the Sheikh hoarders all the ultra wealth dashboard, then the well you know what to do. House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 3 Recap and review the madness of the Queen Rhaenyra. The best part about the House of the Dragon third episode of season 3 is the way music is used to the underscore how the Fagels and the Trisons Rhaenyra grip on the Senti is now that the she queen bee, the dragon queen or the Rhaenyra the triumphant as the episode is the title though I believe the somewhat the ironicals. In the K-Night landing, nothing goes the way she wants, and between the stress of power, alien some sons of the losses and the unaccounted for are rare infections and her the lightning grief over Jack death are the burning roller is the slowly cracking at the seams. Worse the still she discovered just before her first public appearance that the she on her the period reminds the dividing score the heightens everyone scenes. Every the valiant search of worrying when the Rhaenyra thinks she sees Jess walking toward her in the hall of the reed gap. Literally the panel follow her through the darkness of the castle. Clamber the meaning calls, garnish and the gnaw at our neighbors, stained bells ring in the night. Remind the dual score, heightens every scene, the every valiant search of worrying when the Rhaenyra thinks she sees Jess walking toward her in the hall of the Red Keep. The literally the panel falls her through the darkness of the castle. The Camber's meaning calls, garnish and the grow at our new standing bells ring in the night. This is the quiet, the possibly the motenance episode of the series or the intrigue Game of the Thrones, the extended universe. Much of this the episode focus on the Rhaenyra uncomfortable the interaction with the various lord and the ladies in King the Landing, from a hosting High Stephens to Lord the Crystal Valinor to her new the weaknesses is the painful obvious that she needs to Much of this episode focused on the Rhaenyra uncomfortable the interactions with the various lord and the ladies in the king learn from the hostling High Stephen to Lord the Crystal Vaniner to her new the Dragners. It is the painfully obvious that the she needs to learn to the delightful and maybe invest in cats. No Lord many dabs. It's a shame that the Lannister twist are the dead. After all, a minister always pearls his depths. Rhaenyra flicks shock as a queen is the learning of her the empty coffers. All of the gold is the gone, and they're the really enough to pay her the soldiers, let alone throw a lavish constructions. Orwe has no idea where's the gone, and neither do Alicent or the Helen. Wo the Rhaenyra excuse of the fracture before the Alicent reminds her that no, actually, she did everything she promised, sending Edmund out of the city, preventing the crackers and the treble operant from the fighting of her the dragons, and so forth. There are other problems. The raids have the weekends havoc across the Red Keep. Candles are in the short, the simply, and its allow is not the fun zone. They all be the spending their nights in the darkness, though I imagine torch and the lamps still exist. The common flock, the fightings, the Rhaenyra's food, and the basic supplies are the running out. She the suggests hitting in the kind word. Some things the crawl best art. Speaking of the cross, he as his the own the pretensions, he did every much like it is if the queen he espoused the queen his wife died fighting for. The queen was the case less directed to cross, castle being the rest and he is the prize. Sheep's neck, who grant him one the single wish he finally recording Alan and Speaking of the crystal, he as is the on the pretension he did every much like it if the queen he is the spotted the queen he is the wife died fighting for the queen woke course and the directly to the crawl castles being the razor and his the prize ship snug would the grant him one of the single wish he finally recalls Alien and the Adam as is the son and he wants to name Alan his the heir. Rhaenyra has the power of to the lad mice them both but the she his state and the dampers. Later, when she came out of the whites and the huge, the human she tell Adam, Adam of the hell, rather than the Adam the wellness. When the crystal find out, he baffled and the comfort he's the queen. She tells him that due to the sensitive around her the own family, she can't proclaim him bastard the light mate at the moments. The sea snake is the life and does not the whole bag. Your son the Geoffrey is the bastard, he is the cruel at her. Your son the Lurisi who I accepted as the my hair was a bastard. Your son the jealousy life and the diet a bastard. Say aloud the reason you are the children deserve what minds are the denied. If I were here, I might say some things along the lines of the well, the crystal, unlike you, I raised my the sons as my own and never defined they were nines. I love and the create for them and did not show them off to sight until it was the conventions. Dragon to get me wrong, I understand why the crystal is obsessed, but he not being the particles diplomatic about of this. Much as it's the little the ridiculous for huge, had he hammered to demand answer from the Rhaenyr's about his the leaving the arguments. Surely that are the people benefit her battle suited to the managing such the domestic affair. It's the little much to get these the upset become the Rhaenyra says, let's wait until everything is still before we do. Don't get me wrong, I understand why the Crossel is upset, but he not being the particles the diplomatic about of this much as is the little the ridiculous for the huge the hammer to demand answer from the Rhaenyra about his the living the argument surely that our people benefit her better suit to the managing such the domestic affair. It's a like such to get this the upset become the Rhaenyra's says let's wait until the everything is still before we do anything that the might cast unsaid. She has to tell the demons the same things when he starts the rambling about going out and exploring the world and the conquering and the finding this the was is the own, he declared at one point, but it's the brazier for a season's 4 year. She has to tell the demons the same things when he start the rambling about going out and the exploring the world and the conquering and the fronting this the war is won. He declared at one point, but it's the braziers for a season's 4 year and the journal to think such a thing as if the queen have no the dragon as if the armament is not still a major theatres. Of course, all these the illustrations will the soon be the shattered. Rhaenyra need gold, but she also need to restore order and the faith in the crown. When she learned that the city noble have been stopping food and the supplies, even while the city survive around them, she hatched a plan. She will hold a banquet and they invite all of the eight societies so that they can the swear fealty and the kiss her royal heirs. They seems the place and the punch as seven. Rihanna offer up little beavers at their expensive until the meal it is served. Rate on the everything platters cook to a delicious crepesy. They are the out crepe and are not quiet about it until Rihanna the kisses them for not the considering the common flock. Even now she tells them as we sit here clocks are going through your even now, she tells them, as we sit here, gold clocks are going through your the estate to the resistance, the wealth, a good idea of which I suspect will end in the dragon stock offer. Rihanna also sends the diamond to the earlier to demands flattery and gold or the promising of the gold from the lady Arana putting him in the clause the promiscuity to his the daughter Rihanna and her the dragon sister. Of course, in the books, this is the shuttle, but I think this the change can actually work even if it's the like the unnecessary and the even if the show decision to send her and her really demands dragon to the battle of the lust was the pretty the ridiculous. This the episode does a really great job at the portraying the Rihanna's slip toward the madness, or if not the madness per se, then a much more the unhated versions of her the former self. The banquet highlights something else unite, interesting the Rihanna crown Haryana concern for the common flock and the distance for the nobility. It's not any accident that we are reminder of her the decent the dinners in these scenes and her own the designs for the nobility and the specialist slaver or Danny owner for less the subtitle trend towards madness the subquint makes a bold visual the composition of the two women. In fact, behold this the image of the deniers in the Game of Thrones the series pineapple and here is the Rihanna at her the banquet table faking the assembled minor lords and ladies before serving them rates for the diners. The framing, the same pose, the same arguables, shoulders, their behaviors are almost identical as well, even if the dining is more the elaborate it's and the initiations composition between shows like this, the tense music and everything else we see of the Rihanna's. I found myself the wishing Game of Thrones had put as much effort in the Diana's on the crumbling mental state instead of just having her burn up King the Landing and the Countess the Innocent out of the blue. Another the curious detail when the Rihanna's is the dressing to meet her the subject, she tells her the handmaiden that she does not want to wear the jewelry Aswarda. Perhaps she says her the handmaid points out that Aswarda contact her the message of peace and suggests instead a chain. That's the clearly a bite of the symbolism as Queen the Rhaenyra is the prisoner to the weight of the word and the countless the careless responsibility, but I think it's the yes. Rhaenyra is at her the happiest family fracking is the hungry people of King the Landing giving a ration speech before the passing out the bread and the fruit and grain another the sundries to the small flock. She enjoyed there the adoration as much as she enjoyed poking her the thumbs in the eyes of the noble, only one of whom she seems to like. One lord the mantrally play by the den, the floggers, who with his the castling has now the big game of the throne, the Walking Dead and the Harry Potter universe, he amused by her ad feed. Again, the perhaps rates are not the symbols. Rihanna should be going for the after the world blood and cheeses incident. People don't like to be the reminders of the associations of the children. But the Rihanna seems happy enough. The ending, outbreak, and basking in the symbolic love. Also, is the brief moment of peace is the soon shattered. Much of the damage the confidence came from his the brief, swagging making Vimda or met the high waiter's demons and his the dragon, Grizzles alone before high waiter host. Armed the buckle easily enough, dropping to his the knee and swerving the brevetling and the reunites when the demons remember to take the alien youngin son, dragon back with him a hostage. Armid give up his the word within a fight. Remember to be the brave, he tells the blonde hair by who looks incredible nervous and says not a word. A something Damon turns to King, landing with his the Hortis, the domestic, armored with a now go home, and thinking the war is over the Christian call. Assam's Damon returned to King the landing with his the hostage, domestic the armored with a now go home and think that the war is the over the Christians call, happy a Platyphos and the one of the Ravenlands loyal to the Rhaenyra and the demons should have no trouble with. Aegon is the cripple and the lost. Anwin is the that only real theaters and someone the dragon's rider against six. But this is not the dragon that Rhaenyra armored the intrigue capitals was a ruse. He gave them a fraud, not the capped, both the dragon and his the dragon, decisions with him. We learn of this the rare sweet when the Rhaenyra finally brings Alien to see the boy and the Alien look at him with the confusing the Rhaenyra realized that she been. But this is not a dragon, the dragons, the armored entering competitions with our use. He give them a fruit and cat both dragon and his the dragon transitions. With him the we learn of this the rush when the Rhaenyra the finally brings Elysian to see the boy and Elysian look at him with the confusion. Rhaenyra realized that she been the play and the comforts the child. He says the armored balance his the hair and they force him to the pretending swearing him to the silence or he did have my mother hanging. Ormond has the decide me, the Rhaenyra says. Suddenly the fearful did he think I would not the discover it. What game does he play? Oh, you know, the game of thrones, the Rhaenyra's, the one where wins. And Ormond Houtwaiter they appear to be the very capable at this the particle game which should come as when the surprise king or the votes. He is the unclear and the hard words are the widely rich and powerful. He also quick to the action. The high towers, the Rhaenyra shows the land, have skirted the two of the tremblance, a thrifty city on the broad for the ground lands and the reach. The news come by some of the dragon keeps would escape the city, though I am still a little confused on this point. I have missed some things, but why should have be dragon keepers in the trumbull? Had the blacks the confiscated transitions. Either way, the trumbull is now under the however control and the war is the clearly not over. Realm is the furious and says she will burn them, but the dragon keeper reminds her she would burn her own people in the purpose innocence. Another little nod to the dinners is the seams. What does the armored attempts to the accomplish? She asks. My arm is the long. He cannot win as she speaks. Flames erupt behind her. The banners of the hot tower green the brings in the night. Rhaenyra state the armies through the flame. If you are paying the close enough attention, pretty much every episode this season has shown the growing disconnect of the elves, white and the huge the hammer, more than the format than the latter sure, but the both men are not overly the pleased at the way they are being the traced, huge as a family to think of they are in the trembling, unfortunately, and all just the wants to be the rich and the painful. Instead, they are the key knight and the capped, like the normal soldiers, the Rhaenyra is to the precaps to the consider that perhaps these the two men and the crystal and his the business son all probably deserve the very best. After all, she needs them if she wants to win she war and the rescue her the thrones. All told, I enjoy this the episode more than the last two. The music was good and the Emona de Aki was the once again on fire. True, nothing so the granted as a massive dragon and the naval battle that took place. But the seeing the Rhaenyra start to change into someone almost the unrecognizable from her the younger, more innocent self was the complaining in the deepest way. And the first were and the end was great, even though I know this was spoiled by the marketing and the joke for a lot of people. I also think the James Northern is a terrific actor and can do villains really well. So I am executed so more of the Ormond, which is not to say he was villain, but as the attack knows, I think they cast him the quite well. What did you think of this the episode? Let me know on the Twitter, Instagram or Facebook. House of the Dragon 5 biggest canon change in the season 3 episode 3. House of the Dragon held nothing back in the way of the canon chance in season 3 episode 3 of course. This Game of Thrones the prequel series has already established a reputation for such change. with a Song of the Icy and the Fire, another Gocho R.R. Martin, famously having the criticized the show for the previously this. Now that House of the Dragon is just over the halfway through, with the season 4 accepted to be the conclusions, these the various adjustments to the canon story have grown. We are to the point now that even small change have the pretty massive consequence. In this third episode of House of the Dragon 3 seasons, Rhaenyra the menses through her first day on the throne irons the climb the Red Keep with the relative Asa while her brothers, agents and the Amand were absent but the actually rolling the quickly proves for more the complicated that the Dragon's civil war has taken a heavy toll on the city people and while the Rhaenyra's plan to set things right, she discovered that the crown's gold is the missing. The Greens packed it up and the spent it away, and the Blacks have no idea where is the went. This is all more or less canon. The Gorgers R.R. Martin, the fire and the blood, the outlines, the intelligence, the Rhaenyra's face when she took back the Iron Thrones, most of the which the steams from her lack of the gold. However, while the pictures remains the largely the same, House of the Dragon has moved. The dance of the dragons play in a variety of the unique ways, each of which will cause a sort of the brutally effect. Tia Liner's story has the really gone off a course. The Leinster story has the really gone off course compared to how the Gojo R.R. Martin wrote it. This is the man who became the master of the ship and master of Queen during this the science, serving the Greens and was therefore the one who the dives the crown global and the convince the tricks is to engage in the battle of the blood. This is the true for both House of the Dragon and Fire and the Blood. However, in the HBO versions of the story, in the sea's battle alongside the Admiral, the Shaco Loher. Unfortunately for this, the Leicester Lord Loher ended up throwing him into the sea. In House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 3, the Corals Valyrian state that Thailand, the Leicesters must be the Priam's dad, and he is the probably right that the heavy armors would have the quickly pulled Thailand's deep into the glust. None of this they happened in the book where Thailand's they continue to play a major role. He is the man to be the tread by the Rhaenyra's named to be the point of the significant disparity and latter made hand of the king is the Rhaenyra's sons. Agents 3 the Dragon's House of the Dragon now make all of these the seems unlikely ever to play out. Of course, we never saw the Talender's body after the battle of the Glad so House of the Dragon may plan to. Thailand, the Leicester is not the only fire and blood characters the House of the Dragon has a seemingly kill off the deposit their role in the continuing story in season 2. King Aegon and his the dragon, the Sunfire were brought down by the Aemon and the Wiggers. It was a miracle that the Aegon the survived, however scared he now is. Sunfire, however, was left injured after falling. In the Martin versions of the story, the certain call soldiers fed and the narrated Sunfire until he was the held enough to fly to the dragons in House of the Dragon. However, the Sunfire is implied to be the pretty granddad. Rhaenyra is on the desperate lookout for the Wiggers and the ship stealers in House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 3, so she orders Black to take the moderns to search for the two strangers during a small the council's meetings. The demon reports that the only dragon his the daughter found was the Sunfire long dead and the D-Kings. While we have not seen the dragon's body itself, it certainly sounds as if the battle is the beyond all doubt that the Sunfire is the dead. This is a rather shocking change since, according to Fire and the Blood, the Sunfire plays a profoundly important role in the story. Features again is the man to use his the dragon to kill the Rhaenyra along the Sunfire to the burn her alive and the consume her body in one small challenge. House of the Dragon Season 3 Episode 3 just the cast up around the conclusions of the Rhaenyra's role. Huge Hammer wife is in the Trembler. Huge Hammer is in the canon character with a pretty big role in the outcome of the Dance of the Dragons. He is a Dragon's own one of the dragons Bastard would successfully climb a dragon huge rides the Vermeer and so forth in the House of the Dragon. He has been a likable and the sympathetic characters, Fear and Blood that reveals the variety, nothing about huge personal life, but the HBO adaptation have given him a wife and the family protecting and the providing for them that reminds huge top the purity things, House of the Dragon. In this season 3 episode, Hugh asks the Rhaenys about her the promise to provide for him and his the family. He informs her that his wife, Kat, is in the Dublin living with her brother. Rhaenys tells Hugh to send for her and they assure him that once she has her situation sorted out in the King Landing, she will ensure he has a home and all the resources that the family needs. The trouble here is that in Fire and the Blood, Hugh ultimately decides to the pretty Rhaenys to join the Greens during the Battle of the Trumblen. He uses the Vermeters to burn the city and its people, causing mass the devastation. The book never reveals why he did this, but the betrayal is made all the more baffling in-house. This trouble here is that in Fire and the Blood, Hugh ultimately decides to the patriarch Rhaenys to join the Green during the Battle of the Trumbull. He uses the Vermeters, a burnt city, and it's the people causing mass devastations. The book never reveals why he did this, but the betrayal is made all the more baffling in House of the Dragon if the huge family is in the Trumbull when he the turns against the people. Perhaps the Rhaenys will be too later in the protecting huge family and Kit will already be dead when the Vermeters burn the city. Among the Rhaenys, many people in House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 3 in the abundance of the raids in the Red Keep. In Season 2, the Aegons executed all the raid characters knowing that it was one of them who assassinated his son, the During this means the creatures have now the overrun the castle there the irritating the presence compound Rhaenys the outgoing the psychological directors but the ultimately uses the raids to teach the nobles of the king the leading a lesson. While the blockade was still in effect. The notable of the King Landing began the hoarding the resources in their home. This meant that the lower brand people of the city went without. In the response, Rhaenyra invited the noble to the Red Keep for a banquet where the meal of the raid is the uneven. The queen then explained that their homes are being the searched and that the resources discovered while be giving to the stating the massive. It's a clear movie on a Rhaenyra's part, but it's not some things she did in Fire and Blood, while the Queen earned spotted by the namings herself that the champion of the common folk, her the handwriter pushed her into tax. It's the clear move on the Rhaenyra's part, but it's not the something she did in Fire and Blood, while the Queen earned spotted by the namings herself the champion of the common flock, her the bankruptcy push her to tax the people to the point that the rose against her. This is the likely still to happen in House of the Dragon Season 3, but the idea that the Rhaenyra first made this the effort contributes the largely to the target of the situations. Rhaenyra and the Crossols, the Valneria have always had a complicated relationship in House of the Dragon and that make a lot of the sense given their history. However, before Season 3, Episode 3, they were the largely on the same page. This the change when the Rhaenyra refused to the acknowledge Kroll, best sons Adam and the Lyanna and the legitimate with the Joffrey now the here. Rhaenyra can't afford any further questions about her the children's state, putting Bastard on the dragons and then the namings from the bastard limit heirs of a prominent house might not be a great look. Rhaenyra's seasons make some sense later, but it still rather troubles Crystal Q. This is the royal grandchildren shared no biological with him. He knew they were the bastards. Still, he made Loki his heir, and the publicity defended Rhaenyra's. The fact that she won't return the favor now is a painful betrayal. Once again, this does not happen in the Fire and Blood. There is no indication that the Rhaenyras even push back regarding Aegon and the Lyanna being the settles a Volinar. Still, the Bobs outline some the conflict to come between the Rhaenyra's Crawl and his the children after Hugh the Hammer and the Elf fight the betrayal the Queen. Once again, this does not happen in the Fire and the Blood. There is no indication that the Rhaenyras ever push back the regarding Aegon and the Lyanna being the settled as the Valerians. Still, those the book unlines some the conflict to some the between the Rhaenyras, Crowsall and his the children after huge hammer and the whole fight. The betrayal the Queen become the extremely dispute of the Lyanna and her relationship with the Crystal further destruction. In this the case, it seems that the House of the Dragon in attempting to set the stage for the further events. House of the Dragon star the teaser survive conquests following dangerous favor. House of the Dragon Season 3 rares lack the stakes once again. House of the Dragon in a spin-off the Game of Thrones set nearly to the countries before the events of the flagship show. The series explored the rise and the eventual downfall of the House the Dragon during the Civil War, also known as the Dance of the Dragon, which the beings after King the Westeros the Dragon's name his the daughter Princess Rhaenyra as this the source instead of a man. Crosses the Vertian Stephen made one of the blood decisions of his life. In the latest episode of House of the Dragon, he very openly confronts Rhaenyra's dragon CMEDAC of the episode her sons as the bastard inside the Red Keep. For years, he accepted the Jerseys, Leorcia, and the Joffrey as his son, the Lenore, the veterans. Children, the deposit rumors that heard the heavens. Strong was their the biological father. However, after Rhaenyra said no to his the request to officially the recognize Adam, his illegitimate children as official. For years, he accepted the Jerseya Lyrsi and the Jeffrey and his son the Lenore the Valyrer. Children deposit the rumor that Sir the Heveran Strong was their the biological father. However, after the Rhaenyra said no this the request to officially recognize Adam and the Lyanna his the illegitimate children as official, the Valyrer clause final reached his the breaking point. In an interview with the Variety, the resist and that the Clara outburst was not the calculated. He explained that it was the result of the year of the bottle up the frustrations and the sacrifice. The actor said this the character understood exactly how the dangerous it was to execute the Queen of. In an interview with the Variety, the disease that the Clory outburst was not the calculated. He explained that it was the result of the year of the bottle up the frustrations and the sacrifice. The actor said this the character understood exactly how the dangerous it was to rescue the Queen of something like that, especially given what had happened to the other who the challenged her before. However, believed the Crystal had the reach a point where his the fear was the latest of his the concern, making his the action more risky. Resistance said that the Crowland does not thinking he has much left to lose. According to the actor, character has been living with. Resistance said that the crystal does not think he has much left to lose. According to the actor, character has been the living with the possibility of death ever since House of the Dragon Season 1, and now that the many of the people he loved are gone, his only remaining purpose is the scaring the further of the Aegon and the Lyanna and the preserving the Valyrian the bloodline. The actor added that while the colonel genuinely loved the Rhaenyra's son as if they were his own, the grandchildren years of keeping the secret still weighed heavily on him. The character also felt like he had to sacrifice a lot more than else involved in the situation, so where she refused his request. All of this year of the frustrations finally explored from his perspective. He had done nothing but to protect the Rhaenyra and her family deposit, knowing the truth only to see her the Dany his own the children the little they deserve. Her action ultimately pushed him to the publicity confirmed that everyone had already accepted. Her action ultimately pushed him to the publicity confirm what everyone had already suspected. House of the Dragon Season 3 released new episode every Sunday at the 9 p.m. ET and 6 p.m. PT on the HBO and HBO Max. All the 17 dragons in House of the Dragon are ranked by the size. The creatures in House of the Dragon vary in size. Here is how they rank amongst each other from the largest to the smallest. House of the Dragon is the first Game of the Throne spin-off, focused entirely on the risings of the Dragons and the civil war that led to their downfall. House of the Dragon Season 3 was released in June 2026, further developing into the Dance of the Dragon as the mighty creatures belonging to the two warrior side of the house. The dragons are pushed into the battle. As accepted, the Dragons of House of the Dragon have been a major focus since season 1, both when weapons of war and the campaign of the show main characters. As accepted, the dragons of the House of the Dragon have been a major focus since the season 1, both a weapons of war and a companion of the show main characters. The ending of House of the Dragon season 2 that tested ever more the dragon inclusions from the some source material while showing other massive creatures being climbed by the Dagnons, bestiard with the Triona blood. This allowed some of the bigger dragons of the western to enter the Freezy, benefiting the side of which there the elegance is. Due to the nature of adaptation, the CGI budget of bringing these the huge creatures to life and the difficulties these bring in terms of the showing them to scale, it the worth nothing that due to the nature of the redemption, the CGI budget of bringing these huge creatures to life and the difficult these bring in terms of the showing them to scale, it is the worth nothing that the raking that the dragons by size is somewhat the subjective and the speculative. Gojo R. Martin that describes some of the creatures in detail in the books, especially Fire and the Blood, on which House of the Dragon is based. The other voice are not described as the Tholi. When these the descriptions were translated to TV, House of the Dragon made some big the timeline change and had to provide CGI certain that the further vary in size. All of that the being said, it is the possible to the difference between the largest and the small dragons in the westerns during the Civil War, with only a few of the medium-sized beasts being interchangeable. Not less, here is the very dragon show in the HBO series, the rank by their size and for is the possible to the gen view. The smallest dragon in House of the Dragon is the Traces. The creatures beyond it to the terrify the Valinor. Jeffrey in is the youngest son of the Rhaenyra, the dragons and the Heaven Strong, with the Traces the matching that the age after being a cradle edge. Interesting that the dragon has not actually been shown in House of the Dragon, but one sees in the season 2 hints and it's the size as the smallest of the after the assassination attempts were the made against the Rhaenyra in House of the Dragon Season 2, jury was went to see the area. Naturally, giving the beyond between the rider and the dragon Traxxas went along with him. The dragon is the show beings transported onto a sweep via a small cage, with that the cage being the carried by only few men. The proof that the Traxxas is the incredible small for his the age. Even that the one seems it's the likely that the Traxxas is not made biggest than a very larger dog at the point of the House of the Dragon Season 2 ending, though he will certainly grow in the further the installments. Arax the first decides dragon on this the list belong to the Lurusia Vilron. Arax is the somewhat difficult to rank as allowed to the earlier. There are not many scenes that show the dragon in clear the daylights scaled against either the creatures or adult character. However, the best scene to use as a reference in from of the ending of the House of the Dragon season 1, in which the Lurusi and the Arax were the killed by the Wakers, as the scenes the conveyed the small dragons had the no chance at all against his much the larger enemy. Laodicea sitting top Eric's looks similar to the other fully grown adults sitting atop near the equally grown dragons. This means that the comparatively giving Laodicea younger age and their smaller height, Eric's is a lot smaller than other dragons in House of the Dragon, save for the younger terraces, the sheer size of the warrior in the campaign to the Eric's spot this the with the latter that and not allowing him to the grow beyond a young age that the Laodicea the meritates. Arix and the Terraces are the only two dragons in House of the Dragon that can be the continue as small the monster is as the first, and the smallest of the medium-sized dragons in the show, beyond into the below dragons the monster is the show a few times in House of the Dragon 2 as well as in the open episode of season 3 and it's the similar in size to the following there are the four dragons on this list. As a result these the four dragons could the admittedly be swapped giving there are no real the factor size to the compare. However, given that the Modernster is the ridden by the BL, who is the slightly shorter than the rider of that. However, given that the Mozister is the ridden by the Biela, who is the slightly shorter than the rider of that the dragons, it can be assumed that the Mozister is that the small of the bunch. Beside the Arix and the Terraces House of the Dragon Season 3, Episode 1. At least they confirm that the Mozister is the similar that the two other dragons included the Vermax and the Shipisters. Grey Ghost. Grey Ghost is a difficult dragon to rank as he has not actually been the shown in House of the Dragon thus for only the indirectly mentioned. However, as a wild dragon, his growth will have been the uncrumbled by being buried in the captivity such a dragon pets of King the Ladding for this the reason. For this reason, he can be assumed to be the bigger than the monster. Still, this is not supposed to be the objective. If Grey Ghost appear in House of the Dragon in the future, he could easily to be the bigger or smaller than he is the placement here. Tradition is yet another interesting case as she has only been scored once in House of the Dragon Season 2, finally flying height above of the height over army. This makes it the difficult to the gang's her size. Treasuration is yet another interesting case as she has only been seen once in House of the Dragon Season 2, finally flying height above the height over army. This makes it the difficult to the huge her size. Though a 16 years old dragon the Triana is her rider, as a result the transitions can be the compare to Grey Ghost. Vermex and the monster as a dragon is around the same age as the latter true dragon rider in House of the Dragon Season 3, where the transitions can be seen among the height over soldiers looking around twist there the highs, with the Vermex appearing the slightly biggest in his the appearance. The only reference to hint that the decisions is larger than the house other dragons, however, some form fire and the blood. Admittedly, House of the Dragon is the quite different from the source, the material. Even still, the transitions was the described as one-third size of the Vermeter or massive dragon in the Westeros. Therefore, if the show deposit her in this way, especially as she grow, she will be the larger than the older dragons in this the middle group. Vermix is the dragon of the Jerisia Vulrix and was also shown more the intrigue in House of the Dragon Season 2 and 3. Jerisia, as the oldest child of the Rhaenyra the Dragoness, is one of the after-mentioned rider who is the slightly taller than the Biel, with the other dragons looking very the comfortable in size. It is safe to assume the Vermix is a slightly bigger, still medium-sized the dragon in House of the Dragon when the planking him. Syrinx is the dragon of the Rhaenyra the Dragons and has been seen at the survival point throughout House of the Dragon Season 1, 2 and 3. The Syrinx is the bigger than the transitions for Max and the monster as the former is the older than these other dragons and one the difference made in the House of the Dragon show over the fire and blood was that Syrinx was reduced in size. As a result, she is the continued as a medium-sized dragon compared to the biggest creatures in the show. Sunfry is another the medium-sized dragon in House of the Dragon beyond it to the king himself. The Aegeans Rhaenyra the Sunfire is the larger than the traditions as the former is big enough to be the rider into the battle earlier in House of the Dragon Season 2, transitions only appearing as a tease for a Season 3 having been the described as just the larger enough to the battle ready therefore the extra years giving Sunfire more the showing in the compensation to the likes of the Vermax, the Monster and even the Syrax. Something that the sport that the idea that the Sunfire is the biggest than the Syrax is that the former is the larger enough to the battle Malleus the battle that still makes the former look small but he puts up a fight during House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 3 with the Malicium being the known as one of the more powerful dragons one of the Black's team as the onest on the Dance of the Dragons. Sunfire is the proven to be the biggest than the Rhaenyra's the Mounts. Sea Smoke is the largest of the House of the Dragon, the medium-sized, the dangerous ride by the Adam of the Hill. Adam was chosen as the Sea Smoke rider in the House of the Dragon Season 2 before a conversation with the Rhaenyra and the Syrax provide Adam Dragon to be the larger of the two. One wide shot shows the Rhaenyra and the Adam faking off, with the Syriacs and the Sea Smoke standing behind the respective riders. Sea Smoke is the visible bigger than the Syriacs, thought no by much still. The shot was enough to the solidify Sea Smoke as a bigger creature than the last few the dragons. Sheeves the Stealer is the first of the larger dragons in House of the Dragon. The creature is one of the few, the rightless one, in the Westeros during the Dance of the Dragon. Though the House of the Dragon Season 2 the tested that this would and the sun. Thanks to the Rhaenyra the dragons fighting him in the Whale House of the Dragon Season 3 then the following Thor on this the promise with the spectre even being the show in action causing the destructions and death during the Battle of the Glut. Spectre as a wild dragon in the constable larger than those that benefit him in this the least. The battle of the glass to confirm as much with the dragon being the larger enough to take on the Vermax and the monster at the same time as well as stand up to the resist flat. This the easily the solidifies the Sleep Stealer as the first of the House of the Dragon larger dragon class, but he is the described as the Sinky in the books and she deposit him as more the unkempt than the likes of the Craxis, the Militia and the beyond. Caraxes is the definitely one of the House of the Dragon larger the creatures but it's not easy to decang exactly how larger the season for this is the Carax decent build with his the more the superheat like neck and the tail. This makes the carries the incredible big the lengthwise but more the slightly and alike in the terms of the weight and black allowing his the rider demons dragon to the antlers in the battle to the great effect. Cracks is the even know as the blade the warmer reinforcing is the more scale like the designs. What is the clear is that the crisis is bigger than the like of the Sunfire Syrax and the Spectre after all the cracks being on the black side was the considered a major factor in. What is the clear is that the crisis is the bigger than the like of the Sunfire, the Syrax and the Spectre after all the carries being on the black side were the considered a major factory in the whatever they could stand up to the greens the firepower as the taste in House of the Dragon Season 3 though even the crisis is the smaller than the sum of the other dragons in the western with the key the military the task being the team up of three of the black's dragon two biggest than the cracks and the ridden by the dragon seed to the defeat the Wagers. Melia, like the crisis, was the considered a big adventure for Team Black in House of the Dragon, giving her size and the experience with the Rhaenyra the Targaryen as her the rider. Admittedly, Militia and the crisis could easily be the swap, giving the aforementioned length to the latter has. Ultimately, it is down to the personal, the performance, whatever the length or the overall block is more the importance to the board the umbrella terms of the big the regardless in terms of the latter. Militia is one of the House of the Dragon biggest the hitters. She was sure to the drown Sunfire during the battle to the rock rest and the even stood up to the Wagers in terms of the climb dragons at the ones of the House of the Dragon Season 2. Militia was known to be the third largest in the intriguing the Theron family. Militia was killed during the battle at the rock rest, though the allowing other to be the climb during Season 2 Episode 7 Red Show to the surprise head. The larger group of the dragons continue the Spectres, the Cresses, and the Militia with the Hellbent dragons. Dragon the Dreamfire rounding out the group as the biggest. The Dreamfire was second biggest of the climb the dragons. Dragon at the being of the dance of the dragons, though she has yet to be the used in battle due to the Helenia more the peaceful nature. Amandis show trying to score Helen into the riding the Dreamfire into the battle in House of the Dragon Season 2 final episode providing just how big the dragon is. The larger group of dragons the contents the Sheep's Tailor, Cracks and the Militia with the Helen Dragon's Dragon Dreamfire rounding out the group as the biggest. Dreamfire was the second biggest of the climb the dragons at the being of the dance of the dragons. Thoshi, yes, used to be the battle due to the Helen's more the peaceful nature. Amand is sure that trying to score the Helena into the riddle the Dreamfire into the battle in House of the Dragon Season 2 final episode providing just how big the dragon is and how she could tip the scale in the green favor as House of the Dragon Season 2 the ending only 4 dragons are. Amandus show the trying to score the Helena into the riding the Dreamfire into the battle in House of the Dragon Season 2 final episode providing just now bet the dragon in and how she could tip the scale in the green favor as Voice of the Dragon Season 2 the ending only 4 dragons are the considered to the bigger than the Dreamfire. Silver wings in the first of the house of the dragon, the trailer creatures that can be the categorized as the huge, the silver waving was the rightless for a time after the death of his the period bound Alicians the dragon. However, during the showing of the series, the silver wings chose Olaf White as his the next rider, providing as the much bigger role for the formerly wild the dragon in House of the Dragon Season 3 and the beyond. The climbing of the silver waving for the black was a huge the turning point in the dance of the dragon, as silver waving size the means only 3 the other dragons in the westerns are the biggest than him. The wild dragon, no only a cannibal, is yet to be the seen in House of the Dragon and may not appear in the show at all. However, he was the mentioned as wild the dragon that the leaves other dragon character in his the wake. Because of his the lack of the appearance, it is the difficult to the outright say the cannibal is the larger than the civil wings or the even the waiters for that the matter. Still, cannibal is described as a dragon larger enough to at least revive these two, meaning he the nest nicely between these them on the list. Whatever the cannibal they appearing in House of the Dragon features remaining to be the scene as scene 2, right showing was the undoubtable the best place to show him the regardless he is the renowned as one of these the biggest dragon in the western during the dance. Vermeter the Brennan's Fury is the second largest dragon in the western during House of the Dragon and is the now ridden by the huge hammer the Vermeter climb huge during season 2 show of the seat adding in a massive dragon to the black rank. Vermeter and the silver wing were the considered to the huge literally and the forgettable addition to the Rhaenyra's force during the dance of the dragon leading to the after mentioned plan in season 3 for the two alongside the cracks to land up against the Wakers. No other dragon beside one in the westerns can stand up to the Vermeter in terms of the scale size and experience. The Vermeter is almost 100 years old during House of the Dragon, explaining his waist size, while some sources in Fire and the Blood claim the cannibal is the bigger. These are the unverified. The Vermeter crystals is known as a huge dragon season only to none another. Undoubtable the biggest dragon in House of the Dragon is the Vigor's Amount. Triana Mount. Vigor has been known as much since House of the Dragon Season 1 began. In fact, Vigor is the third biggest dragon in the Wisteria history after only the Mermaids and the Belleria the Black Dread. The two other dragons beside the Vigor used to conquer the Seven Kingdoms for a queen the dragons. After the death of the Blenveria and the Merexes, Vigor was known as the largest living dragon in the Western. She remained as such of the over 150 years, with the only the Vermeter coming close to her in terms of the size. This explains why so many fear the Vigors. After the death of the Rhaenyra and the mermaids, Vhagar was only as the largest living dragon in the Western. She remained as such for the over 150 years, with only the Vermeter coming close to her in the terms of the size. This explains why so many fear the Wakers and the Omen in House of the Dragon, as the Green have the biggest of the trailer creatures at their command during a deadly civil war. House of the Dragon crank up action in a less sleepy season 3 TV series. If this the be victory, a character on House of the Dragon reflect while the gaggings out at the crops, the Steven, the battlefield. I hope I never see another. That is the line. Is the instantly that this the statement of the Game of Thrones, the prequel series, which returns on the June 21 after a now the customer to the year absence. Frenchies when they could get there the fix in the meantimes with the lovely much lover key, a key knight of the Seven Kingdom, which the aired on the HBO earlier this year. The drama follows a massive civil war that pits the royal family of the Westerns against itself to the benefit of the absolutely to one. Season 2, however, faced some the criticism for its the lack of the climactic, the set pieces, the protectional duty, and the episode ordered the shouting from the 10 to the 11. Season 2, however, faces some the criticism for its the lack of the criticism set pieces, the potentially due to an episode order the shouting from the 10 to the just 8. Will spinning like and the overlens on the dream the sequence. Not only did I find the major the conversations we did see like the death of the princess, the Rhaenyra, the dragon eye best, and the menace of the Iron Throne, the climatics, the Aegons. In the show first the proper instinct of the dragon on dragon the combat plenty awesome as in the literally EO inspiring in the themselves. I did also the entire see the show previously well established once toward arm the conflict. The quote that the opens in the review is simply of the more explained statement of what that the casual House of the Dragon viewer already know. War is hell, and there no war more the hellacious that the one with the fire breathing, the questionable, the controllable weapons of the mess. Questionable, controllable weapons of the mess, the destruction. It's not something to the look forward to or the realization when it the arrives. As is typical for a show of this the scale, the 4 episode of season 3, the providing the criticize the can be a laundry a list of the spoiler longer than the some wedding trousers. But one plot point I can the devils. In fact, one I bet HBO would very much like to me is that there a major showdown in the very first episode, the infamous battle of the Gladbites naval forces loyal to the Rhaenyra the Dragons, and led by the decorated the Commander Crystals, Sea Snack the Valoria, a fleet from a tragedy of the alien city state. We have the agree to help break Rhaenyra the blockade on the Westeros, capital of the King the Landing. It's also one of the survival, the potential, the conversation that will likely allay the concern about. It's also one of the survival, the potential, the conversation that will likely allay the concern about the continued treading of the water narrow sea or the otherwise. As the stated by the showrunners Rhaenyra the Condals and the directed by the Lonnie Brewster, the Battle of the Glade is indeed the spectacle, yet entire point of the House of the Dragon has been so well made that there little satisfaction to be the gained by the precise victories achieved within its scope. There are no moments. The Battle of the Glade is still the spectacular, yet the interior point of the house the dragon has been so well made that there the little the satisfaction to be the giants by the perhaps victories achieved within its scope. There are no moments the comfortable to the Targaryen leicester the rising the chain across to by the in Battle of the Blackwater, an early highlight in the Game of Thrones that the deliver a dose of the pumping drums when he dragons arrive at the glade. Any relief felt by the Rhaenyra's drop is the fleeting as best, especially when not all of them the obey their the writer wishes, which is how this the whole mess begin in the first place. Though neither history nor deep, when not all of them obey their the writer wishes, which is the how this the whole massive begin in the first place, though the neither history nor the British affected Kier and the Princess Oman did not mean for his the surprise pet to the vampire his the own nephew, which is another house of the dragon dams, that the individual, the intention are no match for the larger focus, be they the historical or the animal. That's why, to my mind, the more exciting development in season 3 is much more the intimate scope than the horde of the tropes descending into the chaos. The final episode of season 2 saw along the light faces of between the Rhaenyra and her the street. That's why, to my mind, the more exciting development in season 3 is the much more the intimate in scope than the horrors of top the descending into the chaos. The final episode of season 2 saw a long delayed phase of between the Rhaenyra and her the standing childhood friends, Trent the stepmother, the Trangers, everybody, Elysians, height over the Olivia Cook. Two women now the standard on the opposite side of the Youngs, chases that the standard as a crack in there the one strong beyond the scenes was a reminder of the rewarding layers in the relationship as the acted by two of more skilled actor in a deep bench assembles skill. In fact that we really blink whenever remember 32 years old Cookie is meant to be the mother of crack in their one stronger beyond the scenes was a reminder of the rewinding layers in the relationship as they acted by two of the more skilled actor in a deep bench each assemble so skilled in fact that we would really blink when the reminder that the 32 years old Cooks is the man to be the mother of the 29 years old the Michaels. I am forbidden from the disclosing their exact circumstance, but season 3 the features many more the scenes between this central pair, a rewarding return by the House of the Dragon to its the roots. Decide have the pause within the series time frame not to the mention for years of the real time. It's the often difficult to the recall the complex web of the aliens, the betrayals, and the family ties that they brought this the character to each the other thoughts are confusions that is sometimes purposeful and something the frustrating. It's look me the survival means or one the sportily emotional the mistakes season of the remember I was watching a parent speak to their own child in there the alternative waves of the restraint and the understanding agents and the sorrow. In there, the alternative waves of the resentment and the understanding agent and the sorrow, the Ake and the cook, the imbue, the Rhianners and the alien, the dynamic with all the weight of this the history and none of its the consolations. Not all of the show the connections are so well realized, even the foundational ones that they drive ways, switches of the story. 2 seasons later, for example, House of the Dragon still the pings the prices for the hand wing. Such development as the Rhianner's long-term affair with the having strong the Rhianner core which the produce two children was the widely the disputed the Lightmares. Not all of the show the connections are so well realized, even the foundational ones that they drive fast switches of the story. 2 seasons later, for example, House of the Dragon still paying the price for the hand wings such the development as a Rihanna as long Champ's affair with the having strong Rihanna core, which produced two children was the widely disputed Lactimates play a major role in the steering the where seeds the planted in season 1 are supposed to be the bearing fruity by now, but the Rihanna's continue Dinah and her the hassless cash bill of a massively the conclusional stormers make the pay off less than the critic it's the good things. Then the Rihanna's and the Elysians the multi-phase the report is. Seeds planted in season 1 are supposed to be the bearing fruit by now, but the Rhianners the continued Dinah and her realized cash bill of the massively the conclusion rumors make the payoff less than the critic it's not things, then that the Rhianners and the alienation the multifaceted report is the check show is the more than able to the cash. House of the Dragon is the adapt from another the gorgeous R.R. Martin, Fire and the Blood, a text that the more and the alternative history the encyclopedia that the literally the narrative at times the condole and his the collaborate work to the shade in the nonsense and the humanity that gets erased in the academic accounts and other the accurately channel the feeling of the stumbling on a footings that the content and the entry adolescent life wholly. in the nonsense and the humanity that gets erased in the academic accounts, at other that they accurately channel the feeling of the stabling on a phone note that the contents and the intrigued the innovative creative life story. So in this with the alien concessions the ornament the how tower James Norton, a season 3 the newscamer would quickly earn his place in a crowded field of the combat, deposits the crystals Fusey and the N-word with the quickly like a sensitive to sentient, ornament into the fairy as a Charles agent the nominally allied with the so-called the Greens. Deposit the crypsis Fusey and the Antwerp with a query like a sensitive to scenes or met enter the ferry as a Charles agent the nominally allied with the so-called Greens, the alien among agent side, but this the end agents and the stat on office the he the kind of the character who laps off the page in the Martin writing and filling the condal and the other passive in the adaptation deposit Martin publicity stat issue with the sum of their the chows. Condell has said that The House of the Dragon will end with the season 4, and it's not quite a criticism to say that the first half of season 3 left me the ready for the conclusions. I don't need to know the participates of the conflict, the resolves, to know it will leave. No one truly happy and everyone worse off the prequels because House of the Dragon reflects that so clearly in each character the trouble excellency decisions that the word makes both the merchants, figures like the Ormond and the unfundamentals one like to the authorities so important, whatever they provide the surprise and the distraction, whether they provide the surprise and the distractions or the anchoring battles, it's the people to make the House of the Dragon worthy enduring. Predetermined the devastations, the dragons are just the CGI flying the lizards on top. Season 3 of House of the Dragon the will premiere on the HBO and HBO Max on 21 and the 29 pm. Season 3 of House the Dragon will the premiere on the HBO and HBO Max on the 21 June at 9 pm ET. House of the Dragon Season 2 the review. Sometimes in the UK they say that a person in almond and the no trouser they promise a lot but they never deliver. Season 2 of the HBO House of the Dragon is often all mouth and the no trousers TV show that's are really the accomplished cast wearing the costumes the clearly crafted by the expert and standing and the grossly realize the environments, but they are just going around in circles week after week. They are the beautiful written the monologues that the lead to daily dealings and the lack of the resolutions. They're the good writing, but they are the beautiful written the monologues that the lead to deadlining and a lack of the resolutions that the good writing but the far less good storytelling that are the entire episode worth of the chat that could have been an email or the okay or a rewind. It's all the entertaining in the moments, but it does not feel like a full season of the forward the moments. No one watched the TV told at the same the sluggish space as which the gorgeous R.R. Martin as have been the written lately, even if there are the fabulous scenes the encountered along the way. Think about where we are at the end of the season, the relevant to 8th episode ago. The Black Queen, the Rhaenyra's Amy Darcy started off the devastated by the death of her son Leodesia in last season's final able but was the reluctant to start a devastating all-out war among the dragon reduced the Triana clan in order to the claims her the rightful throne. It has taken her the entire season to accept the seas need to battle. Even in the final episode, the queen whoever wears, she says that she hoped the new dragon rider she had the recreated word act as the determinates to the green wings of the family who have, as she says, is the unsurprise her throne. After 8 episodes, she stills the thinking about avoiding the fire deposit all those moments in earlier episode were avoiding the fight, deposit all those the moments in earlier episode where she wishes she did be in the train more for the battle. That kind of the ventilation is one way to show she her weak father-daughter, but it does not make for a gripping series lead. Her the estranged husband, Damon Matt the Smith. depend on the whole season. The mopping around the handle before a single final vacation changes the mind. Why did the all gods not lead one that one? In that the same span of the time had the master of the ships and the newly appointed hand of the queen, the Crawley Valiant, has been the rebuilding a single board and the ignoring his the ultimate sons, though at least now we have met them so that some things. On the other side of this, the slowly brewing civil war, there been the growth of a sword. Princess Aman, as she cow become ever more a fearful that the with the slaying the dragon, the militia, and had the rider the Rhaenyr's. In the middle of the season, the tragic and the heroic height point of the show so far, and almost the mustering his brother King the agents to Tom the Glen and the Sesame. By the end of the season, he as his the mother and the sisters cried for their lives, while his the conversations brother is the advice to Harry, his the recovery in the case a mind snake in to finish him off in the night. Still, none of that is the surprise after last season, and as long he's the right, the biggest dragon in the Westeros, he is the firepower to the backup, he's the villainous, the instance, the dragon queen, the Alicent appear to accept in the end that all her the plotting has failed and that all she can do is to try to keep as many of her the children alive as the possible and to protect as many as possible agents women, but they at least a hint in the finable that she may have to ensure that the flight of the Asians and the other first. After 2 seasons, the so-called dance of the dragon is still only a matter of the mirror skirmish. The endless interesting characters and the uncritical moving parts are all just the spinning in place. House of the Dragon is not the necessary boring thanks to those the beautiful written scenes and that the casting, but when you think back on an episode it's after 2 seasons, the so-called Dance of the Dragon is still only a matter of the minor, the sky mishes, the endless interesting characters, and the integral moving parts are just spinning in place. House of the Dragon is not the necessary boring thanks to those beautiful written scenes and that the casting, but when you think back on an episode, it's the hard to remember much that really happened because not much is the happening. Does that make it a bad show? That the seems to hush almost any scenes involving Smith, Best and the Simon the Russell Spiel. His season is the worth watching the actors like the Cook and the Abu Bakr Slims. The latter playing the crawl son alien of the whole have the charisma to brand the even the potentially. Does that make it a bad show? That it seems to hash almost any scenes the involving Smith, Best and the Simons, the results the bill he sees is the worth watching actors like the Cook and the Abu Bakr Slim, the latter playing the crawl son alien of the hull have the charisma to burn even the potentially not one. Villains are like Edmund, series the Kristen, the Fannibal, Frankels get the moments of the Gracie and the complimentary this the season and they are that wonderful bite of the dragon battling in the middle of the seasons with the shouting in the scenes, excitement of the clash and the word being the promise all this time and the scenes that now finally shit is about to get real and then it just does not. It's not only about degrading this the agent, it's the mega successful to the point precisely either of the cause. House of the Dragon in its the own things. It's the drawing from a book that the written as a historical account and the importing that the heavily with the character detail that the missing or only implied in the source material and that's the different the challenging from the Game of Thrones. But at the same time we are not coming to the visitors for in the depth analysis for of a reluctant leader decide to go to war. This is not the successions that the attraction of the Martin Ward has always been the way that the people make the cunning plans, only for some the shortly unforeseen element to come along and screw them up. Dark Stark worked to the uncover a plot, but he. Why that people making the cunning people? Only for some the utterly foreseen the element to come along and the screw them up and the Stark were to the uncover a plot, but he does not account for the lighter figures, Robb Stark the plain of war, but the fails to the consider the failures. Everyone focus on the Leicester but does not know about the Daenerys. Daenerys is so filled with the rage she the lost sight of the John. Here the subtake the Rhaenyra face itself the subtake and its make for less the thrilling twist and turns. They are the figure back battle scenes and way the favor small the conversations along the way too, and that the problem for viewers excitement levels. It does not have to be the thrones, but it does have to have a compelling story of its own. Early on it sometimes fell to the faithful to its the predecessor, but after an episode House of the Dragon has the force its own identity and established itself as a worthy prequel to Game of Thrones. That's the largely thanks to strong written, a widely the overqualified cast and a veritable flock of the dragons. More of the same next time, but a little more confidence too. They have the earn it Halvan O era. The frustrations of the season finale are also hard to get past. Everything that actually in the episode is fine. You can't really complain that you did not get some the dramatic heavy the lifting and the actually quite a bite of the characters the payoff. But it leaves a horrible taste in the mouth because it moves all the pieces into place for something the exciting to happen and then just ends. It is so much to task for a quick the screech. A little dragon fight. It's hard to think of a more the frustrating season final ever to a major show like this. Yes, it's given us time with the major characters and finally move all the pieces in place. Good work everyone, but there are the scenes that they reminds us the show can be the shocking and that it's going to the deliver there as well as the promising them. So it's not a bad show, then the bad dragon out is the way it less than the show should be or wants to be. You have to wonder if the Schnauder Ryan Condell stripped it the action out of season 2 to save up literally watches for the next time when there must be more the conflict, but then why not spare the battles out across two seasons? We are halfway through this the show planet for the season run but itself like the we are barely off the straight block as good as the individual scenes are, and they are good, and there the dialogues is the typical better than the Thrones. Two House of the Dragon will simply never get off the round, and so if it the keeps drawing along and it's this piece. Early on it sometimes fell to the faithful to the predecessor, but after 10 episode House of the Dragon has the forgotten its own identity and established itself as a worthy the prequel to the Game of the Throne. That's the largely thanks to the strong writing and the widely overqualified cast and a verified flock of the dragons. More of the same next time, but a little more the confidence too. They have earned it. House of the Dragon review season 2 that brings the fire early but the struggle so that generated any real heart. The opening lines of the House of the Dragon season 2 the stem for a characters I am not the man to name the speaking of things that have no real the bringing in the Game of Thrones the universe. Duty is the scarifies. The main says I hope I can say he is a man. It's the eclipse all things, even blood, all men of the honor must be it's the price. Sorry to the interrupt, good sir, but who are these men of the honor you speak of? Are of the hiding. It's the HBO saving them for the next time spin. Some are the certainly dead, giving the body count on which the Gorgio R.R. Martin has the built his the brutal word, but they are scar few in the OCD who fit the description to be the fear the narrating man qualifies and his the colleagues also appear to be the living a principal extents, but having seen 9 seasons of the heartless betrayals and the main scale power the grab simply recognize one good man among the giving the body count on which the Gojo R.R. Martin has the built his the brutal word, but there are scar few in the HOTD who fit the description to be the fear the narrations man qualifies and his the colleague also appear to be the living a principal extents, but having seen 9 season of the heartless the betrayals and the meniscus power the grab simply recognize one good man among the many bad ones tends to mean one the things he will be the dead soon. Before the spoiler, the vultures start the picking me apart. I don't know the fate of this the man. He is put one among dozens of the beard white ducks talking and the talking and the talking throughout the first 4 episodes of the House of the Dragon season 2, and he many continue the yammering after his the introduced dialogues or the me climbs up forever. What the matter is that even now, as we embark on just the second season of the first spin-off from HBO HBO fantasy epic. The role of this the game are all too stark, and I don't mean whatever is the lifted directly from the fire and the blood. Prevising the canon is not as the nagging as the sense that the HOTD seems the ordered, where the god felt the erratic, the plotting, the scheming, the characters all feel the similar to the tens of the millions running in, and the such the familiarity is both a comfort to those hearing to the revised the Seven Kingdoms regale the gloomy vibes. Now, as we embark on just the second season of the first spin of the HBO The Fantasy Epic, the rules of this the game are all to the stark, and I don't mean whatever is the lifted directly from the fire and the blood. Revisiting the den is not as the anging as the sins that the HOTD seems the order where the god led. Arresting the plotting that scheme, the characters all feel the similar to the tens of the millionaires running in, and such the familiarities is the both a comfort to those the yearning to revisit the Seven Kingdoms, regal gloomy vibes, and a cage in the season 2, as were the fifthly play out, and its the comparts are the largely the spirited. The season needs to fight its the way out of a corner to break the present instead of the playing into it, and it need to get on with its the already. It's not that the Martin and the Rhaenyra the Condell's prequel lack for action. The premiere is the quiet, a cunning little saga where what the foreshadow the big events in both the neatly the turn away and the hiding in the plain sight. The kind of the setting spike set up that's the better once the dominants have the fallen, but the deposit being the easy to admire. If the typical upsetting to watch, the return episode still feels little the next 3 hours to do. Standing in the diminutive defense to the star-soaring dragons, screaming messes, and the crumbling castle that the fill their extent runtime, the spectacle is the grand yet the impact modest, and that dear the readers meant they are the characters' problem. Two of our biggest stars see their delight demand by the sheer intrigue. Queen the Rhaenyra is the monitoring is that of her son. Two of our biggest stars see their delights demand by the sheer the interior. Queen Rhaenyra Dragons is the mourning the death of her son, the Lurecia last scenes the getting plucked out of the sky like a playful the toasted popcorn kernel by the wingsful the Princess Aemon Tragiana, or more the physical by the Prince the dragon. Vigor who kinda the sort and went the rocks, whatever or not the dragon was the obbing, he's the rider or just the god hangry does not really matter, it's the not debut, war is the here, Rhaenyra part to the Iron Thrones, goes to her former best friend Queen the Aliena, High Tower Olivia Cook, and she means to go there by any means. Okay, not quite any means. Candle and the Martin thankfully avoiding leaning too hard on the OL, digesting hellhead on the fury like a mother whose son was the eaten by the dragons. But in deciding the Rhaenyra's the spilling into the grave, they also keep her out of the action when the silly fight scenes, the literally the sidelines her as a confused, the helpless onlooker and the Elysian surprise. Similarity with one son, the agents surviving as king, and the other finding the role pre-teenage of his the dragon. Alien is left with the word that I want Eric associate main scenes where she questions past the choice and gets the simply with the obvious flaw we have benefited from them for too much screen time that would have been the resource to let cook cookies the instead giving to the brocking brief Chilleri lover of the Rhaenyra who the jealousy falls and the outside. Question past choice and they get snippy with the obvious flaw we have benefited from them for too much the screen time that they could have been the reserves to look a ham cook is the instead giving to the boring the beefcakes, the Sir Kristen's claw, the jitter lover of the Rhaenyra woos, the jealousy fuse, and the outsides read the valiant. Loyalty to the alien, the service of final pops in the season 1, but season 2 keeps the trotting out the white key-night that was known to lizards and the lizards return. Speaking of the hot hair, season 2 also type up it's the number 1 Chaos King, the princess, the demon, the Triana in an episode alongside the quest spoiling all the bells and the whistles of a stall tracking stuck in the one place Jack. Too many dream the sequence. Check out the characters, the complaining they don't know why he doing the what he's the doing check whatever the result of. Speaking of the hot hair, season 2 also ties up its the number 1 Chaos King, the Princess, Damon, the Dragons, the Matt Smith, in an episode alongside the quiet sprawling Aller the Bells and the whistle of a star Tarek. Stuck in the one place, check too many dream the sequence, check other characters complaining they don't know why he is the doing that, he is the doing check. Whatever result of his the journey, maybe the necessities make even be the so good. We will forgettable about is the little dip in the action. Better demons the energy shortage plays the first half of the season and there no the adapters the replacement in the side. Prince the state in the constantly weavings for the crown of the most file but he is the love of the up hell help keep the season 1 from the getting state. Note that House of the Dragon does try to mix things up ever so slightly. There are a handful of the promising new or the expanding characters, included a nice lawyer named Alien, Abu Bakr Slim, and the most welcome return of the Sonoya menus as the Maricia. But there the identities fill the check of a lot to do list. They are giving us simply the guiding principle. He loyal, she is the resourceful, they are the concretes, and they follow that the straight line to the whatever you fat the await. Again, I am just guessing here. Some of them seem like they will be the alright, or at least as alright as the anyone can be in this the nasty little world. The resulting domain from the so much chat table sitting does after the curious audience member time to the consider what the HOTD really means the beyond the fulfilling the dirty. The resorting downtime for a much treated table setting this after the curious audience the member time to the consider what the OGDT really means the beyond the fulfilling the dirty the instructions often the inhibit by the showing a man with a larger pants receiving the rather stained oral sex. The obvious circumstance of the macro particles power the structures that recognize the parallel to modern politics, as well as the slate theory the countries of the Walter Gentiani that the show is the rally and the argument against having the children. New to season 2 is and the upstairs, downstairs, under circumstance and the D-line king and the queen the subjective start to feel a little extra slighted, but it's too early to say if House of the Dragon wants to go full and raw. What it does to do the provide the multiple capital A acting opportunity for a few leads and the lower cast B battle for the audience giving the side of the soldier this smashing. Full and door what it does to do it the providing multiple capital A acting opportunities for a few leads and the lower cast B battle for the audience grabbing the side of the soldier smash into another at the full speed. The dragons are also the use the regular and they look okay but there the first half fights are not the particles the imaginative. Thus, for season 2 has a hard time escaping its the on-trapping, the plot, the lyricious forward, the character focus on where we have already seen new development on either front to do little to rise out the curious for those who wants to turn in and to be the rewarded with exactly with the accepted plus and the extra cringe, including that of the two perhaps that the enough but the HOTD duty to the god should only go as for its the previous status required. This is the functional history after all and the much like the backstanding power the players who make it up, no one is the honor bound to stick to the old playbook. There are room for the investigations even if just things the what a few of the show idea or the precisions or the revelations would look like. Let the alien fight the particles, lends the battle significations the conquest, stop it the word with the Christian the already. The collective joy of the having a share the Sunday night the TV experience is the rare these days, and House of the Dragon season 2 should be able to the maintain our the complete interestive undoubtable the season half will have more the cooking that the first might it the even included some fun but that not and the executed for keeping for the episode of a low simmers. Until that the at least there is some comfort in the knowing every nobles in man the incredible king and will able to that son and then we call and they all watch the next Game of the Throne the spin-off. Since the credit rolled on the episode 8 of the House of the Dragon second season, I have found it difficult to come to the desired verdict on this the season. I suppose that the how the returns must have felt as really it can't often feel As really its can often feel like the wild with the teachers on the average of something the important happening, we are often pulled right back to our characters, the comfort zones. Rihanna reminds is the danger zone, the demon is left tripping his the nets of Insta, Hernal, Christocles and the Eliana have the ridiculous amount of sense standing in the same the decor house of the dragon has always been more of a centered series and the sum of the thrones. We are dealing with the characters, we are all parts of the one family. After all, but following the first seasons where we finally escape the confines of the Red Keep in order to see the broader environments, it feels as though we have not actually got a good look at the realm it's the war yet. Of course, the Rihanna and the Alicent still remains hesitant about all of what about, but it's the means they are not giving much to do over the course of this the season. Very little at all is done by the any of course main characters, and I can count on the one hand that the amount of the major events from the Dance of the Dragons that have been the covered in this the second season. Whether HBO wants to drag out the story of more the fourth season, or if the writers simply felt like they were not ready to let fly, the end result is the largely a season that is the promising great things, just not in any of the episode it is. That's the note to say House of the Dragon season 2 is then really pointless. There are some great moments that sprinkled in there with the tramp downs acting from the almost all of the cast member that really elevates is to a series that they can't still to enjoy even without the standout performance of the Paddy Constite at the heart of the show. Emma D. Arcee, Matt Smith, Olivia Cook, and the especially Evan the makers bring the characters to life in a such way that you can't help but to watch when they are on the screen, even if what they are doing is not the particles worth your time. Following the review of the first two episodes, I was the hesitant to the second teens the show as I thought overall it did a largely good job at introduce us to the climb's early stage of the Dance of the Dragon, where the war had yet the broken out in the full but the movies are being made. Unfortunately, I fell to the forces that this the would be the interior seasons the picking up after Egon's son is the mister in this the lad. Widow movie at the decent pace to the Battle of the Rock reset in the episode 4, which had me the hook for the other major book events that they could have been the cover the seasons and the yet sadly we spend most of our the remaining time trying to find the writer for the Unclimb the Dragons as she the show revents to bring all the about the wings budget destroy. And still, even if we are the impaling about for the most of our times, it still feels good to be the back in the westerns. The costume design, the circumstance, and sound are the very well doing once more. And even if I will never love the dragons and the CGI beast as much as I draw the politicking and the verb the backstable in the Mathens word, I have still got to give the VFX artists credit for their work on the ranges in the season. And still, even if we are the embedding about the most of the our time, it still feels good to be the backing in the Westeros. The costume designs, the costume design, cinematography, and sound are very well done once more. And even if I will love the dragons and the CGI beast as much as I drop the political backing in the Marine world, I have still got to fix the VFX artists credit for their work on the dragon in the season. We have introduced to even more the wings, bridle of the dome this the time around, each with the their own the unique designs that they make even the loss of the one feel like the some things very important has the died. It has been a while since I read the book depicting the events in House of the Dragon, and so that perhaps I am being the unfair accepting the show to move at a quicker pace. But when the opening for a learner season this time around, you would hope that would come with the tighter storytelling that does not have time for the extra for the winding it down to match the space of the book would be the nearly impossible as it is the meant to be the ready as the history more so than a proper novel giving out according of word the settling events in a couple of the paragraphs, and yet I hope that we have been spending plenty of time with those events rather than the lavishing in the space between them compared to what else in the on TV these days. House of the Dragon reminds A strong drama with the Panama's acting and a big budget film, like of which we are really get even the big budget show. It might never reach the peak of Game of Thrones or not might it match the gripping drama that the first season offered, but the show remains strong enough for me to hold on to the same optimism, and yet my excitement for a third season largely remains purely because I know where this the story. A strong drama with the Panama's acting and a big budget film like the show of which we really get even in the big budget show. It might never reach the peak of Game of Thrones, nor the might it match the gripping drama that is the first season offered, but the show remains strong enough for me to hold on some the optimism, and yet my excitement for a third season largely remains purely because I know where the story is going, and I know that is not kept the peak keep breaking whatever forever. House of the Dragon Season 2 Review. King Bright is dead, but the storm cloud of the dragon civil war are the grading one side the fighting for King the Alien 2. Deposit the success of House of the Dragon first season both in the terms of its the Bronisian world build and its the broadly positive the critical response. The second arrives with the much accepting that it can to do better, whatever it was the relative lack of the geographies and the social scope, the big leaps forward in times or the constant casting which switch up as the character age. Even it's the biggest fan had a nickel that could mention on all those the frog. We have good news. Season 2 now run slow by the Rihanna Candle show showrunner Michael the Pop King, having the board Oz is the more the chronological focus less the fights with is the actor and has its the eye on the world and the social state beyond the highborn fragrance the code. It opened with a resignedly familiar musical themes and the location welcoming us the briefly back to the winter for we met Lord the Crescent Star, promising a northern the continue in the war to come and take us into the home and the lives of some of the king landing and the drift marks small folk to the witness how the intense clash of the noble has the repressive on those that dwelling below them. With the new word in the family driving between House the Dragon's Queen and the Black continue, head by the Olivia Cook the Trouble Alien and the Emma D. Ersi graving the Rihanna respectively, we can the confidently accept the dance of the dragon to heat up, but the consteller is hardly rushing into the fray, and first season I flow have been the address is the stand continue to be the shine. Above all else, House of the Dragon reminds us speaky acids, human drama and the assist, timely and well the performance study of the way power and the wisdoms are often multiple expletive and one of the target sequence that the Oscar when the former is the executed without the latter. Dragon are manually a form of the travel and something for the small folk to be scared of in these the early episode. The humdical scream committed by the Imon one eye during the season 1 final was merely the first low. It turns out in the series of the early episode plots that they might be the smust as the impressive powerful that the remitting it's a stupid beast. The result are the complaining the brutal included unnecessary base the deceptions and a spectacular due to between the identical twins. It is left to the result are the complaint the brutal included a necessary base the deceptions and a spectacular duel between the identical twins. It is left to the more reasonable characters to the snack their head in the disbelief and hope they can pick up the pieces as hand of the king or to hide over equipment despair of his the impure spear. They are but the peacocks all the shrinking and the further.